I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am joined by husband and wife duo Stephanie Dodd and Justin Badger, who together are the Fremonts, who this Friday will be re-releasing re-recorded versions of their two albums. And they have got an interesting particular story. And it's a story that comes out in a previously performed stage adaptation of their second album, The Failure Cabaret, where they interspersed the songs of the second record with these funny tales of the trials and tribulations that they've gone through as a couple, which I think was kind of the first point that they really endeared themselves to me. And I recognized the wit underpinning the stories that they have constructed, which are also very exquisitely constructed in a lot of cases. Like going back to their first album, there's a song called Tillman's Wall, which I think is a great example of the way that they've weaved all the instrumentation together in a way that sort of combines bluegrass and country and folk and pop elements together. And we talk about the way that they put the albums together. The Failure Cabaret, as I mentioned, their second album, being where they explore more of the kind of personal problems that married couples can have to face in a dry way, often very amusing. So yes, they have very interesting personal history to discuss, musical backgrounds, acting backgrounds, and how it got to the point where they decided to create the Fremonts together, and also where the name comes from, which is another funny story. Anyway, the two albums will be released this Friday, as well as a music video for Ketamine Happy Hour, one of the tracks from Failure Cabaret, which I am going to play a little clip of in a moment, and I will play that in full at the end of the episode. You can go to their website, thefremontsmusic.com. You can also get them on Instagram and Facebook if you want to see information for upcoming shows and any other relevant news. You can follow me at Tom Osman Sounds. You can go to my website, tomosmansounds.com, to see what I'm doing with my own music. And I think that is all to be said right now. So without further ado, Stephanie Dodd and Justin Badger of the Fremonts, take it away.
The world is too grim for vodka. The news is too bad for champagne. Don't offer me marijuana. I need more than that little flame. I need ketamine. I really mean it. It's a vice for pandemic times.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hi, Stephanie, and hi, Justin. Pleased to meet you. The Fremonts by name, and also the Fremonts by Zoom account.
Yeah, I know. We try to stay on brand,
Yeah.
you know.
I like these posters you've got behind you, the mushrooms and the flowers. Is there any particular significance, or is this just in work?
This is my work office. So this is my Zoom background for all of my regular work meetings. But Justin actually bought these for me a few years ago, and I thought they were so great. So I put them up behind me. Sometimes I think this one might tell a little bit too much about my interests for my work meetings. But thank you. Thanks for noticing them.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is I've got something that's sort of comparable, but I think it's a little bit too small and too far away for people to really see. But I've got a picture behind me of cheeses.
And the wood frame back there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Are you a cheese enthusiast?
I'm not quite sure what characteristics qualify you as a cheese enthusiast, but I do like cheese. Not sure if I get the official title, but yeah, cheese is cool.
I'm really glad you said you like cheese, because otherwise I don't know if we could continue this talk today.
I know. That'd be really
Nothing to talk about with you.
We passed the first hurdle. So,
Great.
Goodness.
for those who don't know, why do you refer to yourselves as the Fremonts?
Well, I grew up in a town called Fremont, California.
And I grew up in a town called Fremont, Nebraska.
So the name kind of wrote itself. We really used every last bit of creativity coming up with that.
There are a lot of towns in the United States called Fremont. There was a French explorer who went across the country naming things after himself. And his name was John C. Fremont. So in my little town, our Fremonts are very, very different. Like mine is a tiny little rural town in Nebraska in the Midwest. Justin's is a huge.
I'm like right smack dab in the middle of Berkeley, around Berkeley, Oakland, and San Jose on the East Bay of San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hadn't realized that there were many Fremonts. It kind of removes the feeling of incredible coincidence that the two of you both came to different Fremonts.
It's kind of like a Springfield. There's lots of Springfields all over the United States.
Okay.
We ran out of ideas on naming towns real quickly over here.
So there's various aspects of your history that I wanted to get into, and it's kind of funny thinking about questions to ask you, because I guess various autobiographical history is sort of included, although I guess there's always potential for poetic license. But in the performance of your Failure Cabaret, you're basically talking about your life together. But like I say, how much of that is actually real and how much of that is for the stage is... I'm not necessarily asking for an answer to that as a question, but I'm just sort of saying that...
I mean, we're happy to answer it.
Yeah.
Well, don't answer it. Don't answer it just yet, because I will get to that. But
okay.
But before we talk about the Failure Cabaret, I want to talk about your first album, We Don't Live There, because on your press kit you said that some of these songs are written as theatrical collaborations, and I was wondering what that means.
Yeah, we both moved to New York City to be professional actors and worked in the theater for a long time. Justin performed on Broadway. I mostly did regional Shakespeare theater, and then we both started working full-time day jobs at a certain point. And so to keep our acting lives going, we started writing our own shows, and we collaborated with a theater company. And as part of those shows, we built this onstage band. And then it just kept growing. And then we just started doing performances at music venues, and then it grew into our main thing.
Yeah, so there's a few of the songs on that album that are holdovers from one of the shows that we created. There's a few songs on that album that were written by each of us individually before we started playing together, and there was a few songs that we played together, that we wrote together. So that first album is really just a collection of us figuring out what the Fremonts are going to be after the theatrical roots were kind of somewhat left behind at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you had that in you to, excuse me, if you had that in you to create sort of theatrical song performances, but you say that you were actors before you were pursuing being actors, I guess that the singing and the musical performing side of things also went far back for the two of you as well. So kind of like what's the history for both of you in that respect?
You want to start with Oompa Loompa?
Oh,
yeah.
It's a good way to start any story.
Yeah, I know, right? So my first moment on the stage was, I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. I was an Oompa Loompa in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So, from a very early age, I was always kind of a theater nerd at heart, although not always in practice, because then I kind of like got into sports, and then I got into a punk band, but all the while I was still doing theater. So it started very early for me in regards to, just doing community theater at a very early age. A lot of those community theater shows that you do were musicals. So I was never formally trained, but you just kind of get thrown in a room with a bunch of other kids, and there's some very patient choir director sitting there trying to get us all to sing on tune. So that's where it started for me.
And I grew up in the church. My parents were really religious while I was growing up, and we went to a evangelical church. And so my mom especially really pushed me to be up front a lot. So I sang a lot of solos with the choir. I was always performing in some Christian musical group, usually like very upbeat. And usually all of our songs ended with this choreography. We'd be like, yeah, you know the vibe. And then I just always loved theater. I did a ton of plays and musicals in junior high, high school, college. I love being part of a cast. It just feels like an automatic group of friends. I love that bond. And even now, I mean, luckily I have Justin to perform with, but I do miss that feeling of being with a whole group of people creating something together. It's just kind of a magical energy.
Of what you've both described there, I feel like the one outlier in those two stories is Justin being part of a punk band. So I'm wondering how that kind of
Ooh.
like fit in with the theater and the musicals.
Uh, so, growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, we were only a quick 30 to 45-minute drive out of San Francisco proper. So in high school, we would spend a lot of our weekends driving into San Francisco and seeing a bunch of punk rock bands at all the punk rock venues over there at the Troubadour at the bottom of the hill, Gilman up in Berkeley. It was so that's kind of where my musical taste started. That's where I started figuring out what my own musical tastes were when I was buying albums and whatnot. And that carried on into, the late 90s when grunge died and alternative music was kind of like figuring out what it wanted to be. And there was that brief 3 to 4 year period where ska punk became really, really popular. And I was like, this is going to be my thing. I am on it. So I got really good at that upstroke on the guitar, and in college formed ska punk bands that I played with for about 6 years. But throughout all of this, I was also still doing musical theater. So I kind of had this weird like double life of like being like theater nerd for half my time, and then I go turn around and put my chain wallet on and dye my hair blue and play ska punk, at the college parties and things like that. So there was it was very strange. Like when I started actually getting into doing musical theater, and trying to do musical theater professionally, I had to do a lot. That's when I first started taking singing lessons, because I had to do a lot of training for my voice, because I came up with no technique, with no sense whatsoever on how to properly sing. And no one's gonna cast someone who's singing like they're in Fugazi in a production of, Guys and Dolls. So
That is a fair point. So, obviously I talk to various people making music, and so I get people's insights about sort of the practicalities of making music. And like randomly, I suppose, because I'm sort of into various different comedians and comedy, and I listen to various comedians talking, I hear quite a lot of stories from comedians about the amount of time that they sort of have to expect to invest before they can expect to actually get some kind of career. But I guess I've never really spoken to actors or people who pursued an acting role about what their expectations were. So like going back to the point where you felt like acting could be your careers, what were you hoping for in terms of a career, and what were your sort of expectations of how much time you should have to put into that in order to be able to actually like have that as the way that you made a living?
That's a great question. I think we actually thought about it really differently.
oh yeah.
I mean, I moved from rural Nebraska to New York City when I was 18 for my first acting internship, and I really just fell in love with New York City, and I really fell in love with the theater there. I mean, I saw everything that was playing that first summer, and it just took my heart. And I knew I wanted to move back there full time and pursue acting as soon as I could. But in college, I was supposed to be a cellist. That was the plan. And then I went and visited a bunch of schools that had great orchestral programs. And I would walk down these practice halls and see dozens of cellists in those little cells. Do you know what I mean? Like those little practice room cells. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Like 4x4 closets with a
Yeah.
small window on the door.
They're very common in the basement of music schools. Is like there'll be these long hallways with little small practice rooms, and each one had a cellist in it, for 6 hours a day working through music. And I just thought, I don't think this is the lesson I need to learn in life. Like, I'm already kind of introverted. Like I should probably pursue something besides cello. And so that was when I really knew I wanted to try for acting. I didn't have a particular career goal. I just wanted to be part of things. I wanted to be around actors, be around artists, live in New York City, have a creative life. I wanted to write and sing. And I think for me, it was probably this is why it didn't work out so well for me as an actor. I didn't really have a specific goal in mind. I just wanted to be there and I just wanted to do it. And it worked out. I mean, I got to make a living as an actor for about 10 years. So it worked out well enough, but you had a really different goal.
Yeah. As in my mid teenage years as a young budding narcissist, I was convinced that I was going to be a star. So I got to college and I got into college with a biz econ degree, and then auditioned for my first student directed one act, got in, and then I was like, well, biz econ's out the door. It turned out the college that I went to in Santa Barbara had a really great undergraduate theater program. So I auditioned for the theater program there, got a BFA. And then literally I was just kind of taking this track of like, what do I need to do to get to the next level, to get to the next level, to get to the next level? So at the end of my undergraduate training, I was talking to all my teachers and they're like, well, you should probably go to grad school. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go to grad school without any thought about what grad school was or what I actually thought about it. I just started applying. I got in, I went to grad school in New York City. I got out of grad school, and then kind of the grad school that I went to, we did a lot of like because I didn't do any research and just went to the one that I got accepted to. It turned out that we were trained with a lot of like kind of like a downtown vibe for theater. We learned a lot about Brecht, and we learned a lot about theater of the absurd, and we did on top of all the normal classical training that you get with the Greeks and Shakespeare, and we did a ton of Beckett. None of that really are like the making, like that'll make a great show at La Mama, but a star is not necessarily. So my brain, again, still in this weird cloud of narcissism, is like, all right, how am I going to fix this? So when I graduated, I then spent a few years doing downtown theater while also trying to get an agent, do all that kind of thing. I had a manager for a little while, and when I realized that all the shows that I was taking part in weren't paying me anything, and I needed to make a living if I wanted to move on, I ended up talking to a buddy of mine's mom, who is a big Broadway producer, and she introduced me to one of her friends who was an agent, and he was the agent that I worked with who helped get me onto Broadway for my first time. And he was one of the guys who was like, you should probably start. He's like, you have a voice, but you should probably start getting training. So I started doing training. So my goals were very much just climb the ladder in whatever sort of delusional way I thought possible. Unfortunately, my brain and mental health had a different plan for me when all things were said and done. But that's kind of how I went about things.
The brain and mental health can do unexpected things.
Yeah, exactly.
And so thinking about sort of the timeline of when you became this musical duo of the Fremonts, at that point, have I got it right that you both had full-time jobs at that point? And so were you still doing some sort of stage acting then, or you'd completely stopped?
We had stopped at that point. We moved to Boulder, Colorado. We'd lived in New York City for about 14 years, and we were just feeling kind of tired. And we also had this sense that we were putting all of this effort into other people's shows. I mean, even being on Broadway, which is such a huge honor, like you don't have a lot to show for it afterwards. You just kind of have a program that your name is in, you have the memories, but there isn't something to hold on to.
There's nothing tangible.
And so we really felt like, well, what if we tried to build something that we own and that we could hold in our hands, like an album? And so when we moved to Boulder, Boulder is full of folk musicians, and we were really influenced by that. We made our first album in 2017.
Yeah.
And we were listening to a ton of folk music at that time. So you can really hear that influence in that first album. And that first album is sort of all about that transition, leaving New York City, going west, living in a new place, trying to find ourselves there.
And there's a couple of questions connected to all of that I want to ask you. I suppose one thing I definitely want to ask you is, at this point now, because you do talk about it a fair bit in the show of the Failure Cabaret, I'm trying to think of the way to frame this. Let's say if someone were looking to you two as tour guides and they're like, I want to go live in Boulder, Colorado, what would you say to them?
We're gonna be careful. I still work for a company in Boulder. This is what and the thing that was great is that we performed this show premiered this show in Boulder, Colorado. And they all really, really took quite well to the gentle ribbing we do of Boulder. Boulder's a lovely place at the foot of the Rocky Mountains. There's a lot of wonderful, beautiful people there. It's very I don't know if you've ever heard the adjective crunchy. It's got a real crunchy vibe, very hippy dippy. There's lots of granola, lots of flannel, lots of beards, you know, like
okay. That kind of crunchy. All right.
Yes. Yeah. It's very like health and wellness centered. Another phrase that comes to mind is very woo woo. But lovely, like lovely. I go back there at least 3 or 4 times a year for work, and it's great, and it's absolutely great. But it's very funny, you know, when as we started settling into our lives as musicians out there, we realized that like one thing that Colorado loves to brag about is that they have 300 days of sunshine. Right. So everyone is very, you know, hopped up on vitamin D and very happy about it. And they love going, and they're all very active, and they go outside and they hike and they mountain bike and they rock climb. And Steph and I get out there, you know, after 14 years in New York, and we're like, where are the inside kids at? Like, you know? So, you know, like I think on our first hike, and we talk about this in the show, on one of our first hikes out there, was a very muddy hike. And the hiking out there is gorgeous. Like the Rockies are the real deal. So we were on one of our first hikes out there. It's a muddy trail. And so we're stepping around the mud and stepping just on the outside of the path. And this dude comes up behind us, and he's walking with his hands behind his back. He's hiking with his hands behind his back. With these very long strides. And he looks at me and he goes like, "I'm sorry, but the paths on this mountain are wide enough already. You're really gonna have to walk in the mud." And in response to my "Are you kidding me?" look on my face, he then says, "I'm sorry, I'm just a conservationist." And like, and I'm like, look, don't get me wrong, I love the earth. I'm all about, you know, I fully believe in climate change. But that was the most obnoxious thing. And even I was mad about it. He went walking up the hill with his hands behind his back. And I was almost like, but out of spite, I was like, I'm going to step on this grass. Like,
take that, Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty obnoxious. Like, I'm sorry, it can't be helped. I just know things. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But sticking with that sort of that early time in Boulder, Colorado for a moment, thinking still about your first album, you know, a lot of the people that I talk to on this podcast make music that is either pretty extreme or pretty bizarre, and you might say like willfully uncommercial. Mm-hmm. Whereas in contrast, I would say your music has the potential to be quite commercially successful. But at the same time, as I'm sure you've had plenty of experience, or probably more experience than me, the music business can be a big, brutal beast. So talking about expectations again, I'm wondering, when you did make the first album, and I understand that I guess you invested quite a lot of money and quite a lot of time and quite a lot of energy in it. You did have the jobs, but again, at this point, what did you hope from a commercial point of view you were going to get, and what did you expect that you were going to get from it?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, just to start with the funding, we did do a Kickstarter for our first album, right?
No, that was for the EP.
But, we did an EP.
We did a Kickstarter for the tour.
Oh, yeah.
Of the album, yeah.
We did a Kickstarter for the tour. We got very lucky in Boulder. We met a couple of guys who, one was an amazing engineer, one was an amazing producer, and they had access to a lot of great musicians and a beautiful recording space. And our friendships were really like the crown jewel of that album process. Yeah. Like, we just had a riot making that album. We had so much fun. And I think partially because we were all so friendly, they put a lot of extra time and energy and unpaid work. Chris arranged the string parts for us that work was unpaid. Cameron, our engineer, did a ton of extra work on that album. We brought in a choir, they were volunteers. So no one really made much money off of that album.
Yeah, and I don't think
Did we pay our musicians?
we gave everyone a small stipend.
Yeah, everyone got a
Everyone who
stipend.
came in, except for the choir.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were volunteers.
But I think that I think that one thing we've always talked about is we never want to. Part of why we have these day jobs is because we've never wanted to rely on our art to sustain us, because we take a long time doing it. We don't play live very often because every time we do play live, we put a lot of work and we write completely brand new material for in between the songs. So when we play, we try to play in bunches of shows. We don't do a lot of one-offs. So I think our biggest expectation when we started writing that first album was really just like, well, this is gonna be the first time we've recorded a full album. Let's try to do the best album that we can with under the circumstances that we've got. So that was really, I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of you, but I think that was one of my main goals with it.
Well, we wanted to put out the best album we could, and then we wanted to get it reviewed a lot, and then we wanted to tour because we had never. Well, I toured a little as an actor, but we had never toured as a band, and so after we released that album, we set up like a 40-show DIY tour all around the United States, and that was great. You know, it felt like a dream come true, actually, to take that time off of work and just be on the road together, playing shows and meeting other musicians. And we had such a good time. But I don't know if we met our expectation. Do you think we did?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard because I think that like this with music, I personally was a lot more realistic with my expectations than I was as an actor, because after years and years and years of what I now look back on and thinking about, when I look back on my time as an actor, I hear from so many people saying like, don't get in it to be a star. And that's exactly why I got in it. And so like, I think when we started doing the music, I'm like, I'm not going to do this to become a rock star. I'm going to do this just to try to just make the best product that I can and then play the best shows that we can. So in regards to those expectations, it's funny because do I think we met those expectations? I don't know, because we just finished re-recording all the vocals for that album.
Yeah.
And that tour we did was it was fun. We had a great time, but it was a really big learning curve because we weren't all that great at performing live yet. We were still learning how to be ourselves as a band on stage, I think. So back to the idea of expectations, I don't know that it did meet them, but not because we failed, more because I don't know what the expectations were outside of just like, let's just do what we can do and continue to like improve upon it.
And when you were playing when you were doing that tour, was it just the two of you on stage or you had other people with you?
Yeah.
It was just the two of us.
And did you have the kick drum?
Yeah. At that time we had a little, one of those little homemade suitcase kick drums.
So what was, from like a sort of a coordinating point of view, what were you doing instrumentally while you were singing?
Steph was primarily playing piano.
Yeah, I brought the accordion in a little bit, but it was mostly piano.
Yeah, I was playing mainly acoustic guitar and hitting that kick drum, and then all of our music is very heavily two-part harmony influenced. So that was the arrangement behind it. And it's, I think what helped is that we started playing those songs as a duo, recorded them as a band. So we knew how to play them as a duo before we went to the studio. So that was what was really fun about that, was then figuring out what pieces of what we did in the studio we wanted to try to take with us as a duo to add on to what we were already doing.
Yeah. So thinking about the Failure Cabaret. So now that you've mentioned the fact that when you do, when you go to play live, you change what you're doing in between the songs. Like in terms of your performances of the Failure Cabaret, how much do you alter that, like the stories that you're telling in between the songs?
So that was actually set around a script. That was scripted. We had an executive producer on that show who worked with us to help build the jokes out. And once it was set, we mostly kept loyal to the script, but we did take it to Edinburgh for a month. And we learned a lot in Edinburgh. Well, first of all, we had to cut off about 15, 20 minutes off the show to get it to fit into our time slot, which was actually a huge blessing. It made the show a lot better. We just cut little things here and there, like we're going to cut one chorus of this song, one verse of this song, but it made the whole thing flow a lot better. And then it was interesting because in Edinburgh, some of the jokes just didn't work in front of that audience. A lot of jokes that worked really well back home just didn't quite translate. So we ended up cutting sections or like reworking sections to try to make it more like Scotland, UK friendly.
There were also moments where we'd be on stage and we had, at that point, performed it so much we could connect on stage and figure out which spots we wanted to like pick up the pace with, or if there were, and just with small little eye looks going like, maybe this part needs to get snipped a little bit and then move on. And then it really depended on the audience, night after night. But yeah, that show was set. That was a well-contained machine.
Okay. And obviously, like the way that you present the show, it is presented as being this very autobiographical story. I suppose the Failure Cabaret in itself as a record, people aren't necessarily going to listen to it and go, oh, this is autobiography. But how much were you sort of taking from your personal experiences when you started coming up with those songs?
Very heavily.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all basically a diary, and the show is a reflection of our life and our marriage and what we've been struggling with. We were really mining our own experiences to come up with that. Obviously, it's theatricalized, it's fictionalized in some ways, but it's all based on our lives and our journey.
Yeah. And with the album itself, there's a couple of songs on that album that that had been written before we started working on the Failure Cabaret show that just worked with the theme of the show and the script of the show. And so the first version of the album that we initially released very much sounds like and reads like a cast recording. It's very stripped down and bare bones. It's just me on the guitar, just Steph on the accordion, and just two vocals. And as we stopped performing the Failure Cabaret, and the Failure Cabaret is kind of put to bed now. There's the show that we have up on YouTube, which is the 54 Below performance. That was the last time we did it. And that was kind of like our big grand farewell to that show, I think, if you will. So in retrospect, when we went back and started listening to that album again, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to re-record it, because we wanted to flesh it out so it sounded more like a band and less like a original cast recording of the show.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so at what point in the process of making the album did you come to that decision that you were going to turn it into this comic show?
Well, I had a boss in Boulder. His name's Chuck Porter. He's kind of an advertising legend. Like if you went to school for advertising, you'd study him. And he's a heck of a guy. He's just a really sweet gentleman from Minnesota. And we got along great. And he's really interested in art and theater. And so he also is interested in beer. And so he started inviting us to go out for drinks with him after work. And he would ask us a bunch of questions about our lives in New York City and theater. And he would ask us, like, why aren't you doing this anymore? Why aren't you doing this anymore? So anyway, one day he said, like, what would it cost for us to make a show together? And we were like, what? And so we decided, like, when we figured it out with him, we decided, okay, we'll put together this cabaret with you. And it was sort of his suggestion. I think you said to him when we were talking about what we would write about, Justin said something about, oh yeah, how hard it is to stay married. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
And Chuck was like, I love that. Let's do that. I mean, that wasn't really initially the thing we thought we were going for, but it worked out great.
Yeah.
It is very funny. It does also make me think when I watch it that, you know, it is great the way that you're making light of these different things that you've gone through together. But I can also imagine that there's the potential for that to be very awkward, both in terms of like how you're writing it and then performing it as well. So how did you How did you navigate that?
Well, it's Steph. I would say, 99.5% of that script came out of Steph's brain. I am not a very good writer in that format. So a lot of it came, and she bounced a lot of ideas off Chuck as well. And so while we were writing it, I think we must have made a decision early on where it was just like, if this is where we're going to go, then we have to be an open book and we have to be okay telling these stories. And at no point do I ever think it became an issue. We both bought into that pretty early on.
Yeah, we both bought into it that we would be open about this. And actually it created a lot of really great conversation after the shows.
Yeah.
It is kind of an awkward thing when our friends would come see us, because some of the stuff we were sharing, it's not like stuff you like tell your friends over drinks, like some of it, they were like, we had no idea you were going through that. We're like, yeah, you've learned more about us at our performance than you have in our lives. But a lot of people came up to us and said, my kid deals with bipolar, or my wife has this, or my husband has bipolar, whatever. We heard a ton of stories, and we ended up staying after shows for quite a long time, talking to people about their experiences, their marriages, their struggles, depression, ketamine, all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
it's pretty fun.
I think there is this tendency to force a picture of marriage that it's always great all the time, and it has to be great all the time.
Yeah.
But it's not great all the time, and it's hard sometimes, and there are peaks and valleys, and the goods are good, and sometimes those lows are really, really low. And so I think I was always really struck by when people would reach out and say, like, yeah, that's marriage is rough.
Yeah.
So that was another conversation that it opened up, that I really appreciated. It makes you at least it made me feel like less alone. Like, I'm like, what am I doing wrong in this process?
Yeah. It is a weird thing with marriage where it almost feels like you get married and the vault gets sealed. And like you have to present an image of like, we're great, we're doing great, we're a couple, we're part of a community, we're normal. And so we got really excited about presenting to people who look like extroverted, normal, and then cracking the shell and showing all the trouble, because couples hide secrets for each other all the time. And people are so dishonest about what's going on behind the closed doors of their home. So it was really fertile ground.
Yeah, that's a good insight. That makes a lot of sense. And then, so thinking about the reissue of your two albums, and so we've touched on the fact that you re-recorded your vocals for the Failure Cabaret, and then you also did some re-recording for the first album. Is that right?
Yeah, we re-recorded 6 vocals on 6 of the 8 songs for the first album, but none of the instrumentation on the first album has been touched.
Yeah.
So what was it like? Well, I mean, I guess first of all, at what point did you decide? Because I think I read something that you were going to work on new material and then you decided to go back to these albums. What was the kind of process that got you to where you said, this is what we're going to do? And what was it like to revisit the albums and, the process of deciding this is what we're going to redo and how we're going to present them?
I mean, that was a pretty painful process, I would say. And it all came out of us having this sort of midlife existential crisis where we were like, oh man, we're reaching this certain age, and like, what do we have to show for ourselves? We don't have kids. I mean, we have day jobs, but we don't really have like big careers that we're super invested in. We have a nice life. We travel and we do fun things, but what do we have to show for all of this? And so we were planning to record all of our new songs, but one night we just thought, why don't we listen back to the first 2 albums and just see how we feel about them? And when we listened back, we were like, oh no, like our engineer did such a good job. Our producer did such a good job. The musicians did such a great job. We just didn't sing as well as we could. We didn't have a ton of experience recording music. And I don't know, we were just thinking about ourselves like 40 years from now, hopefully, in a rest home somewhere, listening to those albums, being like, God damn it, we could have sung those better, you know, and that's what we would have to show for it. So we just thought, let's take our resources, let's put all the money that we've saved into our old albums, and let's make something that we're really proud of before we move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, so what was the process like? Like, how long did that take you? How much time did you have to put into that?
It was a long slog. Yeah, I think mainly because day jobs got in the way. We were somewhat working remotely with our mixing engineer. We had gone in to record a first song with him, and my song went well. We got a really great we got really great. What I sang in his studio is what you hear on the song Olivia Now, which is a song that I had been wrestling with since I was 23. And then Steph went in and sang a song, and we had worked on demos here before we went into the studio. When we got home, Steph was like, I really liked what my performance was doing on the demo better, but when you go into the studio, you got to pay for it, right? And so we would have loved to spend more time in there, but we had a very strict budget for this, shoestring budget for this thing.
Yeah.
I have a side hustle as a voiceover artist, and so half of our closet is soundproofed and is my VO booth. So we asked our engineer, we're like, what if we recorded all the vocals at home and then sent you the stems to mix and take care of? And he was like, yeah, that can happen. So that way we could spend as long as we wanted to getting the performance that we wanted to and not feel under the pressure that, oh gosh, we only have $100 left and that's going to cost us 1 hour of studio time. Well, this is what we got, you know?
Yeah.
So we really took a lot of time sitting up in that, like Steph, the hours that it's not a comfortable half of a closet. It's like an under the stairs kind of closet where you have to hunch. So like you're in this weird contorted gremlin sort of position, singing into the microphone. The amount of hours spent in that dark little room in front of the computer, just like singing a line over and over and over until you get that performance that just feels like that's the one right there. So that took a long time. Also just fitting it all in with the day jobs, you know, like when you're working like 50 to 60 hours a week, you know, and it's like 6 o'clock at night and you're like, oh, I got to go up into the studio now. And your brain's just buzzing. So that's finding the time to do that. So I think we started in November and the albums, we just got confirmation from the streamers that the albums are uploaded to the streamers and they're ready to go live on the 25th of July. So
thank God.
Woo. Yeah, it was lots of technical glitches on the way. It's like everything that could go wrong went wrong with this. And, but yeah, so it was a long process, longer than what we were used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we didn't really have a producer working with us. I mean, we were really producing this version of it. We worked with an engineer who also played some instruments on the album, but it was really our ears that were discerning what we liked and what we didn't like and what we wanted. And it just felt like a lot of pressure to really listen as hard as we could and keep our eye on like, what is the bigger goal here? What are we trying to create? So in some ways it's good that it took so long because we had a lot of opportunities to reevaluate and rethink through songs, rethink through percussion lines or bass lines we were adding. And I think overall the albums are much improved from this process.
I can listen to them now. I wouldn't listen to the albums before because I was so disappointed in my own vocal performance. And this now when I listen to them, I'm like, oh, this is a fun listen. I'm enjoying this. So that feels like a goal accomplished to me.
It's funny that the recording vocals thing strikes such a chord with me. So I used to, I was in a band and then I ended up in a sort of, I guess it was technically a band, but it was basically me and one other guy from the previous band. And we had this process where we were making music together and we wanted to make an album and we just like worked on this for ages. We made some certain like elementary errors where it's like we didn't spend enough time with the rehearsing for the performances. So we ended up like recording stuff and then trying to do all this like post-production editing things. It just ended up all being very stale. But the thing that became a running joke was I always wanted to re-record my vocals constantly. And we had this song that never got finished that was called Snow. And there was one version of it that was called Snow 23, because I think there was like 23 different vocal recordings I'd done. There's like a friend of my friend that I was making music with was like, oh yeah, I really like that song Snow 23. And it's just like, it's actually just called Snow, and it's because I've had 23 different vocal recordings of it. Ultimately binned. So I feel you.
Yeah.
It's so confronting to be in the vocal booth. It really is. I really felt like I had to face myself on every level. And I commend you for 23. Some of mine would be like Snow 87.
I know. She would have me go up and open these recording files, and I would just see these folders just like fall to the ground of vocal takes, you know.
Yeah, and then, you know, I mean, you get into that thing of like, how do I know when it's done? How do I know when this is like the best version it could be? It feels like a bit of a sort of a Stanley, like the Stanley Kubrick horror stories from Eyes Wide Shut, of just like, you need to have 500 performances of you saying this one line.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. How did you determine that when you were making your album?
Well, it just all went in the bin. So
So when the lid slammed, it was finished. Very clear, yeah.
Not the greatest resolution, but it's one kind of resolution. There was something I wanted to ask you about, because you touched on putting shows together, and I am interested. One of the topics I like to ask people is about booking shows and booking tours. So I'm interested to know from your point of view, from the practical side of things, how did you do that? Like, because I've talked to different people who'll talk about, you know, talking to venues. You might have a tour manager. It might be word of mouth. It might be like other performers that you link up with. What was that, or what has that process been like for you?
It was kind of a combination of all those things. I mean, we didn't have a tour manager, but we do know a lot of musicians. And so we just started asking people, where did you play in Des Moines, Iowa? Where did you play in Iowa City? And people had great suggestions. And luckily, a lot of the towns that we went to had a lot of nice smaller venues that were appropriate for us. And then once we booked a show, then we really tried to collaborate with other local musicians to get a little bill together. Because it's not like we don't have fans in Wisconsin, really.
No.
Well, maybe one. Well, I have one friend from high school who lives in Wisconsin, but like we really needed to build a little audience for each show. And so we tried to get press at each different city. We try to get a local interview with the paper or with some journalist. We did as much as we could to build an audience, but this is where it is really a bonus to be good at our day jobs, because we are so good at spreadsheets. Not to brag, I don't mean to brag, but we're really good at spreadsheets. And that is all this is making a list of cities, a list of bands in that cities. When did you contact them? Did you follow up? What dates the show booked? Who are the press contacts? It's just all admin, all follow up.
All research too. We got so granular with that.
Yeah. And so I think our attention to detail and our diligence, which is really something we learned from these day jobs, really served us on tour.
Mm-hmm.
Just incidentally, have you played with Charming Disaster?
We have, yeah.
We played with them the last time we played live 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago?
Something like that. 2 years and a few months.
Yeah.
Was with we played 2 shows with Charming Disaster here in the Berkshires. Yeah,
they're great. We're big fans.
Yeah. We saw them play a couple of times and then reached out and said, hey, would you ever want to share a bill with us? It'd be really fun. So we opened for them on 2 nights here in the Berkshires. It was great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they were great to talk to, and I'm a fan of theirs. So I hope I'll get the chance to see them perform. Did they do the thing with their cards that they created for the songs?
I think they always do that. Yeah.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great to see, and they're so good. They're so eager to reach out and help and share their knowledge, and they're a really good template to see how an indie band does it. Like they've got their merch on lockdown. They really, know how to use social media. So they're just all around Great musicians, great songwriters, lovely people.
Yeah.
We're really hoping at some point in the future we get to play with them again.
Well, we're pretty lucky because they have a connection to the Berkshires where we live in Western Massachusetts. So they come through here about once a year.
Yeah.
They'll be here again in September, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking to them was really insightful with like, yeah, how they do things as an indie band. And I got a lot of very interesting insights from them. Thinking about the re-release of the albums, so they're going to be online for people to stream. Are there going to be physical versions for people to buy as well?
We did not print this one to a physical version this time. Mainly because we still have boxes of the original versions on CD down in our cellar.
There's something I can relate to as well.
We're like, well, so we made the decision to not print them this time. We have all the files that we need if, for some reason something catches on and people want it. We have everything we need if we want to print it on a CD.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we just wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to get their hands on it, and just releasing it digitally seemed like the right idea.
Will you have it on something like Bandcamp and have the opportunity for people to buy it?
Yeah, I think that Bandcamp is going to be the service that we want to push the most, just because that's the most band-friendly platform out there. I mean, we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes and all the other big streamers because that's where all the fans are. And the last thing we want to do is tell someone don't listen to us on any of these streamers. But like, if you really want to support a band, the most consistent way you can do it is to throw them some cash for their album on Bandcamp. Even if you then go listen to it on Spotify, it's just like that. The amount of money that an artist makes from one sale of an album on Bandcamp equals how many thousands of plays on Spotify. So so Bandcamp is going to be the big push, I think.
Yeah.
And in terms of what you're going to be doing with promotion, like whether it's shows or videos or anything else, what do you have lined up in the coming weeks and months?
We are releasing a music video to go along as sort of a partner piece to the album. Justin did all the editing for the music video and it's looking great. It's almost finished. It's for our song Ketamine Happy Hour. So we'll be releasing that, and then we're playing maybe 10 or 11 house shows and venue shows over the month of August.
Here in the Berkshires, yeah.
Yeah, mostly here in the Berkshires in upstate New York. Yeah.
And have you decided when the video is going to come out?
It's going to come out on the same day as the albums.
Yeah.
So the album's going to drop and then the video is going to drop as well. I'm actually putting all the final touches on the video this weekend.
Yeah.
So it'll be good and ready to go. It's been a lift, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And how do you feel about the social media side of things?
Oh, it's tough.
It's hard.
I mean, I'm sort of taking on the social media manager role for this release. And I'm not really on social media myself personally anymore, but coming up with content that will engage our fans, be interesting or funny for them is a challenge. It's just really time consuming. And I wish we had a social media manager, but at the same time, it does make me think a lot more about who our audience is. And it has made me think that we haven't really done a great job in the past of really cultivating those relationships consistently. We kind of release something, perform it, and then we disappear.
Yeah.
And so we haven't stayed in touch. So a lot of people, so I just started posting about these shows just maybe a week ago. And a lot of people who are replying to us are saying things like, oh, it's so good to see you again. Oh, we're so glad you're back. And so I think it's a real weakness of ours, like audience curation, curating that community, staying in touch. So I hope we do a better job of it in the future. And I do think social media might be a key to helping those relationships.
Yeah, it's another one of these necessary evils. It's just like that Pandora's box has opened, and as many like high ideals as I may have about how I would like to do things, like you got to do an Instagram reel. You just have to, and like
also relatable.
You gotta hold that phone in front of your face and talk into it and then try to sound interesting, So yeah, it's always a learning curve. And I think also the other big thing is in between album cycles, we definitely tend to get a little bit lost into our day jobs or life. I think because of the fact that that is one of the big issues of not having it be like a primary focus, having like the day jobs take up so much of our time is we don't spend enough time on it when there's not a goal. When there's not like a something at the end of a due date, so to speak.
Well, I mean, I think speak for yourself.
I'll speak for myself. Sorry. I'm terrible at doing anything creative without a due date. Let me put it that way.
Quite good at it.
There's a conversation for you two to continue after we hang up.
Yeah, we'll have that. We'll talk about it in the car.
Why did you say that?
Fun.
And in sorry, Stephanie, I was not trying to suggest that was going to be the reaction that you were going to have. I didn't want to impose that on you. In terms though of like the shows you've got coming up and just like generally publicizing what you're doing, where is the best place for people to go to see what's going on with you?
I think Instagram is our main social media thing. When it then farms off to Facebook, and we're on TikTok, but we still haven't figured that
We don't.
we're showing our age with TikTok. You know,
We all
it's-
draw our lines, and I just happen to draw my line there. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah, I
deal with
know.
that.
It's just like in your face,
Stressful.
let's talk. You know, it's. And then our website has all the fremontsmusic.com has all relevant information. But I think the thing we touch the most is Instagram. And all the links to everything that you would need is there on our bio site as well. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, Stephanie, Justin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful talking to you.
My pleasure. Yeah, all the best with the release and with the shows you've got coming up as well. And hopefully our paths will cross, whether digitally or in person somewhere down the line.
I hope
That'd
so.
be great.
The world is too grim for vodka. The news is too bad for champagne. Don't offer me marijuana. I need more than that little flame. I need ketamine. I really mean it. It's a vice for pandemic times. I take my medicine. It helps me unwind. It melts my polar ice caps, and the water's just fine. I wait till 5 o'clock. I'm a classy gal. Then I turn to my prescription to boost my morale. Ketamine happy hour. Ooh, slip me under your tongue. Ketamine happy hour. Let's have some fun. Life is short, but the trip is long. Who can say what's right or wrong? But I plan to sing along at the ketamine happy hour. If I could offer advice to all of humanity, I'd say find yourself a prescriber. Hold on to sanity. You need ketamine. Yeah, I really mean it. It's a savior straight from the lab. It's not gonna cure the virus. It won't heal the land. It's not gonna stop injustice, but it stops me from being a crab. You can try it at a clinic through an IV. You can get it in the mail. Just don't do it while you watch TV. Ketamine happy hour.